Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marginal Support, where support is anything but marginal. I am your host, Andre Lindy, and I am honored to have Stacy Justino with me today, and probably butchered that last name right there.
No,
Sorry
you got
about
it. You
that.
got it. You got it.
But it's an honor to have you on today. Just give a brief introduction, and we can just jump into our discussion today.
Yeah. So I am a support leader, currently product support manager at Pet Desk. But I started out, some few years ago, as a customer support rep. Didn't know that this was going to be my career, but when I became a team lead, I was like, oh, this is the thing I want to do. This is the thing I'm really good at. Um, Earlier on, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I did that for 2 years in Korea, and then realized that it was a little too repetitive. Like I loved teaching kids, but teaching the same subject material to multiple classes, it was. I'm really glad I had that learning before I went to school again to get a master's in teaching. But then when I got my first team lead role, I realized that all the things I loved about being a teacher I got to do, but I got to solve interesting, challenging problems every day.
I honestly think that some of the best support leaders for people are those people that want to teach or have a passion for sharing information. Myself, I also lived in Korea for 5 years, so hey, we have something in common there. All right. Um, but one thing I want to also talk about is, I started this podcast because I felt like I had something to share, but I wasn't sure if anyone wanted to listen to it. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on people who want to get more active, but then they don't really know where to start, or they're like, do people want to listen to me? Like, what's your thoughts on people that want to start having their voice heard just by someone else other than themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the easiest way to get started is commenting on posts that resonate with you on LinkedIn. And if you're a member of like a Slack community or online community, like Support Driven or Elevate CX, um, just start by answering questions, right? People are posting questions in these online communities every single day. And if you have an answer or you have a story you can tell that is relevant, they're asking for, hey, I'm setting up our SLAs for our support team. And you're like, oh, this is how I did it at X company. Um, that's just the easiest place to start. You don't have to start by creating your own content. I think the best way to dip your toe in and get over some of that fear of I don't have anything to offer. I can't write anything. Is to just comment on posts where people are either asking for feedback or asking questions or are sharing their experience, and you've had similar experiences and you want to add to the conversation, and then answering questions that people ask in Slack communities or online communities.
I don't know about you, but for me, when I started to answer some of those questions, it would spark more ideas in my head. And then I'd say, well, this person didn't ask this, and I don't want to shoehorn when I'm thinking into their own. But then I think that kind of naturally can spark people into maybe wanting to then write their own post because they're like, this is information I want to share, but I don't have anyone to comment on to share this
Mhm.
information. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's such a great sort of the flywheel effect of just starting by commenting and answering questions. Yeah. Um, Kind of related to that is the one of the reasons I always encourage people to answer questions in the communities they're in, or engage with the content that it resonates with them, is because every time that I have to talk about, how I approached a situation, in the past or in the present, it gives you the opportunity to look at that process or that experience and revisit it, right? So you can be
Hmm.
like, hey, this is how I did it at Loom. But now I'm doing this here at Pet Desk, and this is kind of how I'm doing it differently, or what I learned, or just gives you a chance to hey, we haven't looked at our quality standards in quite some time, but I just shared with so and so in Slack how I built quality program when I was at Wistia, and now I'm going to put some time on my calendar next week to review our current quality program to see like what we might be able to do differently or better, either just from talking about what I've already done, but also kind of like other people usually engage in that kind of content too. And it's like, oh, some folks shared some really interesting things that I hadn't really considered that I want to go and apply to our quality program where I'm at now.
So that kind of brings up two thoughts in my mind. One is our friend Neil Travis is always putting out amazing content. So, I mean, there's probably times where I'm guessing maybe you've seen something he's doing and you're like, oh, wow, that fit perfectly into what I'm doing right now. You know, how often would you say that you reviewing a process and then you see something that someone else is doing, you're like, why didn't I think of doing that? You know, like how often do you gain inspiration from what you're seeing other people do?
All the time. That is one of the things that I think is like most rewarding about being a part of a community like that. And funny you bring Neil Travis up because when I was launching the quality program at Pet Desk for our support team, I had asked in support driven the quality channel. I was like, hey, does anybody have like a good template for quality reviews? Because I could build one in Google Sheets from scratch because we weren't going to be paying for like QA software. But why wouldn't I ask my really smart, really talented friends? And Neil shared his QA sheet, and we based it off of that because I was like, okay, this is great. This is formatted in a great way. The little formulas to roll up to calculate the the score is all there. And I was able to just kind of fill it in and adjust it a little bit, and that's what we've been using. So very kind of funny that that's who came to mind for you, and I like literally have a recent example of doing just that.
That's pretty funny then. One thing that I've noticed in the past also, and I'm curious if you've noticed this too, is that when you are talking about a process you're doing and you're like, hey, I did this in the past, and you go look back at it and you're like, oh my God, that is hot garbage what I did in the past. This really needs to be updated. For me, I first saw that the first lessons I taught in Korea, I thought they were good, but then about 3 or 4 years later, I went back and looked and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, kids, this was just horrible. How often for you have you gone back and you thought something was great, but then you've gained experience and you go look at it again, and you're like, what were you thinking? Like, this process is not good.
I mean, I think for me, like the thing that when I am in a situation like that, what I really think about is like, oh man, think about where I am today versus where I was a few years ago. And I mean, it's actually like for me, it's more of like a confidence boost, right? Like
Mm.
I have gained so much and I've been able to apply it, and now I can really take that process that I created 2 years ago and make it what it should be.
I think it's great. I mean, I think in some ways it can help others so they don't make the same mistakes we do. So when you do have a refined version, you can say, here's what I did that worked really well. Here's what I would not suggest you do. But I think one of the benefits is then you always get fresh eyes on something.
Hmm.
What's your take on, the whole principle of I'm going to show you to water, but you're the person that has to drink yourself.
I mean, I think that like that sort of adage is like situation dependent, right? Like there's some things where like telling step by step kind of how you built something and putting it out there for people to use, and then or take what applies to them and not take the things that don't really apply to maybe their their context. Um, but I'm not really a believer in just being like, you have to like now go the rest of the way. If it's something where you can share all the things, it's not proprietary, it's not
Mhm.
like a trade secret, then to me, like I don't really understand sort of gatekeeping that sort of stuff.
Sure.
Um, I think that if the situation where I wouldn't necessarily is if you kind of put it all out there and then because it's like super complex or people are going to have a lot of questions or you're open yourself up to like people being like, "Hey, can you help me build this thing for me?" I think that is where like maybe some people have that mindset you were talking about. Um, and that would be like the only thing that could open yourself up to like signing up for something you didn't know you were signing up for.
You're like, wait a minute, you asked me to build this, and now you want me to build this? No, that's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I
that's
mean,
not.
because I've definitely seen that happen. I mean, but I think that that is rare. So to me, that's not like worth gatekeeping that sort of information.
I agree with you. I mean, for me, it's where in the past I want to give people their own aha moments, but then I believe that you can still give people gentle nudges along the way,
Mhm.
and you can say, here's where you might go with the next step, but I don't want to spoon feed you. I don't want you to just like rely on me to do everything. So yeah, I agree. There are instances where you really need to help push them along, but yeah, you shouldn't basically do their homework for them. I
Yes,
completely agree with
yes.
on that. Um,
But yeah, I'm always like, but I mean, I also think about like kind of going back to the quality program. Um, I have definitely had like Google Meet, Zoom calls with multiple folks that I've been connected with in the support community where I basically would like, yeah, walk them through exactly what I did, shared all of the sort of like process docs that I've written up. Um, because like that's something that like if you've never done it before, like you could waste a lot of time trying to figure some of that stuff out. And I'm like, hey, this is the format that worked well for me, and this is a different the another format that I've used. Um, and because I don't want somebody to have to reinvent the wheel if like
yeah,
it will work for them too.
that brings to mind what a previous manager of mine said to me in the past that he said, Andre, I need you to be more strategic. And I'm like, well, great. What exactly do you mean by that? So, I mean, I think there is a time and place like saying, like, yeah, I'm going to walk you through. Here's my thought process. Just take your own spin on it.
Hmm.
And if you have any questions, I'm here to help you. So I think that's a really great point there. One thing I want to go back to, just because we're talking about the community now and creating content, is that we do see some people in the space that do create a lot of content. And do you think some people might feel intimidated when they see these people that they know, but they see them creating so much content, and then they think, oh, how can I live up to that? Or how, like, should I try to create as much content as these other people are doing?
Yeah, I think that is definitely something that is sort of creates a barrier, even if it's like not sort of based on like fact, right? But it does make people feel that way. So, kind of what I always kind of share with people, especially folks who want to get started with creating content and building sort of their like personal brand, is start small and start with like what you can sustain, right? Because I
Mm,
think it's more about building that habit and then building up sort of followers or people who are like your niche sort of audience. Um, so what can you commit to? So last year,
mm,
when I had wrapped up my time at Loom and I was chose to want to like enjoy my summer with my family, but one other thing, my one goal, like professional goal, was to get back to posting on LinkedIn regularly. And so I was like, I'm gonna post 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, and get better about like engaging with other people's content that I like either look up to or like really really enjoy the content that they're putting out, and adding my perspective. And so I knew that like, hey, I can do 2 to 3 times a week, and I was able to sustain that. And through that, I was able to actually grow my like followers on LinkedIn from I think when I started at the beginning of the summer, last summer, I was at like 1,700 followers, and then by like the fall, I was at over 200, 2,000. So it actually like it worked, right? And it wasn't
yeah,
posting every day. I was posting 2 to 3 times a week. I didn't necessarily have like a set like content plan. I just was posting about the things that were relevant to me, like that I was interested in. And, I was interviewing for jobs during that period, right? Because collecting unemployment, you got to apply for 3 jobs a week. Um, and you never know when one of
yeah.
those roles might be the role that works out. And so I was sharing sort of my experience as someone who was currently in the process too. So that's the other thing too. Talk about what you know about, right? Like I
Mm,
think another sort of barrier for people is like, oh, there's hundreds of people on LinkedIn talking about job searching, talking about like support metrics. Why would I be like put my voice into that conversation? But like every single person has their whole lifetime of experience to add to that topic. So your perspective might be very similar to somebody else's, but there's gonna be something unique that they can add. Plus, who you're connected with and who's gonna see your posts is maybe different than other folks. So they may not be exposed to the volume of content that you may be exposed to. So you may reach someone who can really benefit from learning from your experiences, who might not have seen that kind of content otherwise.
I mean, I think also to what you're saying there is that since LinkedIn is so vast, everyone has, there's overlap in followers. You never knew like where your content's going to show up in the feed. So even though 10 other people might be saying this, you put that on, and if someone could see it for the first time, and that could make a change for that person. So
Exactly.
that's one of the hurdles I kind of had to overcome myself when I'm like, oh gosh, yet another support podcast. But I've had people interact with it that I never thought would. So to your point, just put yourself out there because you don't know who's going to see it, and it could really help a person. Help them go over that next hurdle or that next step. So I think that's wonderful advice right there. Um, and closing up, is there any last things you want to share? Anything that you're excited about? Anything you just want to let the world know about right now?
That's a really great question. I think what's kind of top of mind for me is, and going back to sort of the community piece, is I'm part of the Aspire Council, so that's the mentorship program through Support Driven. We we're about to wrap up, but like if you didn't apply this round, I would definitely recommend folks to apply. And I think, especially when it comes to being a mentor, I think a lot of people are like, I don't have enough experience to mentor somebody else. But, unless you're like in your first or second year of support, there's somebody who's one or two steps behind you who could definitely benefit from your mentorship. And that can take so many different forms. It doesn't have to be through a formal program, you know, partially like posting stuff on like LinkedIn or engaging in Slack communities. That is a way of providing mentorship. Maybe it's not in a formal one-to-one engagement with someone, but like that's a way you can, give back too, right? So like it's not just about like, hey, putting myself out there. I want to like share this sort of stuff. You really are giving back to your community by creating content. As long as it's sort of, genuine and authentic. I think that's what's most important.
I couldn't agree more. I think that kind of goes into what I generally always say at the end is that sport isn't just a job, sport is a mindset. Because we have to have that mindset when we want to help people, either through clients, tickets, or mentorship. So, Stacy, was an absolute pleasure to have you on Marginal Support today. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.